let's start. What I will do is over next maybe next 3-4 minutes, I'll introduce the concepts what we are trying to focus on. One of the critical aspect of this activity is to ensure that we understand how digital products are managed in in this ecosystem. And in this particular webinar, we'll talk about only basics. But what we are starting is that over next 3 more weeks, we'll take maybe an hour session every week. Every Thursday, we'll take a 1 hour session so that you have a better understanding of what a product is all about and what are the various roles available in it. So we will ensure that you will get piece by piece and we'll get through more. I'll speed in the process session because I know that we got lost bit, maybe at least 5 to 6 minutes. So what we will sort of get through is a quick one. My name is Singh Jaini, and I am part of the Digital Flip as an organization. We are the largest fintech consulting firm in Asia, and we work with a lot of players in the market on the fintech side, very large entities, small entities, banks, NBFCs, and all of them. In terms of, we are running this program under Bharat Fintech Summit thread, because many of you would have attended Bharat Fintech Summit and we've got a lot of feedback. We will be coming back in Bangalore in August, and I just wanted to communicate this out. So thank you for joining us for the previous event, which happened almost 1.5 months back. And it was a roaring success thanks to all your support. A lot of content is generated as well. So you can actually go to our website, the Digital Flip, and look at more content. And even in YouTube, you can see all the details as well. There are some of our customers we work with. So one of the points which I always tell is that most of the sessions or trainings or events which we do are largely based on our real experience on the ground. And therefore, to some extent, you may feel that it's very basics, but I know that basics work best. But this is our experience. We work with largest of the banks, smallest of the banks, fintechs, and all of them, including bureaus and rating agencies and networks. There are 4 areas we work. One is consulting. We are very deeply working on consulting. We do a lot of partnership GTM. We do trainings and we do recruitment. So this particular segment which we are doing has a lot to do with our trainings, because in our larger trainings, we teach a lot about product management, and we are going to bring some of the elements here. And of course, since we do recruitment, many of you would be looking for jobs as well. And you can use this framework for your looking for your own jobs, or maybe if many of you are looking for figuring out your own thought process on how to hire these resources and what kind of JD should be there, I think you can use this sessions as well. On the advisory side, we work, as I said, with large banks, with startups. On open banking side, we are working with many entities on building open banking stacks. We work on the security and compliance and research. And of course, we train a lot of people. This is part of the training content which we do. We do a lot of B2B training as well for entities like IDBI Bank, Central Bank, JP Morgan, Perfios, and many others. And of course, this course is part of fintech and open banking sessions which we take, which is actually almost a 3.5 months, 4 months course, where you will get a lot of external people teaching you on how fintech is all about, what open banking is all about. And we know that product management was a big gap, and we have introduced that in the session as well. So that should get you some bit of information of what works well. This, as I said, is a series of sessions which we are taking every Thursday. For next 4 weeks, we'll take these sessions. Today, we will focus on basic concepts of product management as well as emerging goals for product managers. And then next week, we'll talk about the customer centricity as well as product lifecycle management. We'll then get into the details of product management processes, price economics, critical success factor, and of course, how do you ensure that these products actually are onboarded on the digital transformation as well. So we'll get through all of that. This is available on every Thursday, so you can join our future sessions as well. And as usual, all the sessions are free of cost to anybody to join. After that, we are starting maybe around 6 to 8 week sessions on digital transformation, and we'll talk about how banks and fintechs can actually transform from wherever they are to the next level. And this again based on our experiences on what works rather than what sells. Let's move to the basics of it in terms of basic concepts of fintech. I think one of the key things which I keep telling people in the ecosystem is that whether you like it or not, you will have to take a lot of risks as we grow. Maybe I think some of your complaints is the light is too much. So let me see if this is better. So in a world where everything is changing, I think risks of not taking any changes is not good, right? So I think we all, for example, chat GPT, see what the implications are for you, your organization, and rebuild yourself. A lot of people are saying that the changes are too many and too difficult for take. We had a digital lending guidelines coming up last year. That changed everything. And then of course, funding, no funding, everything can change. So we need to be able to take risks and move on. I think this is one typical example where every product manager faces this issue in his life, is that whenever they go for a change management or they come for a product management, they always find it difficult to communicate the change, because the product managers out there, or maybe the business managers out there, expect all features in the one shot, and that's likely to sort of create challenges in actually delivery. So just one sample I wanted to see. We have seen so many of, whenever I look at this slide, I find so many of my business guys would actually not think about any situation they are in. They will always look at, can we have a copy paste of somebody else in the market, without realizing that where their journey is and where our journeys is, and what all features you need is can only come incrementally. You really can't compete with the best in the world on one shot. You need to keep improving with time. Now let's come to what product management is all about. It's basically a process of planning, and this is again straight from online we have picked up. But I think critical for us to understand, we are talking about planning, we are talking about developing, launching, and managing a product. So product manager for me is actually the CEO of this product. He has to ensure that he understands from the concept perspective, what is required, when it is required, ideation stage to go to market, right? So I think if you, a lot of product managers actually think of their activities only back end guys saying, "Mere ko ye banana hai bas, mere ko ye requirement aani banani hai bas," but not really. In the real world, you need to be able to have an empathy for the customer, understand what the needs are, and then work closely with the backend system, the tech people, the operations people, the sales people, to ensure that it is all optimized, so that you know what is the top line you will get out of the product and what is the bottom line. Finally, each product has to scale and ensure that you get a revenue source out of it, and you have to ensure that the costs are also managed. So a lot of people think that costs belong to somebody else. For example, you scale up from X to Y. Let's say, for example, you think of your product scaling from $1 million to, let's say, $10 million. But you need to be aware of that. If you move from 1 to 10 million, what do you need to do from an operations perspective? What do you need from a sales perspective? What you need to do from onboarding perspective? Each of these elements, maybe you already have a cloud, and cloud is actually is scalable, but there are restrictions at one point in time that beyond that, either your revenue or the cost will change, or maybe there'll be a separate security layers which has to come in. You need to be able to judge all of these points so that actually you can manage the journeys. A lot of people get lost in the journey because they will not know every piece, and then there are ruckus. I think product management, I will not go deep into these slides, but I want to talk a bit of concepts which will help you. I think it came in the world, product management, as when P&G did this long back in 1930s, when they had a concept called product manager, which is basically a brand man, which is what they thought about, which will manage the product, which will manage the sales, and which will help in advertisement and promotion. So that's when the first time somebody thought about end to end. And then, of course, we saw Hewlett Packard focusing on products as a segment, as business itself, company itself getting created. I like what we hear about from a Toyota perspective. There's a concept of continuous improvement. So as a product management, your job is to ensure that your process and product continuously improve, so that rather than one shock improvement, can you ensure that every time you nudge, for example, your productivity per person is say 100, from a sales perspective, can you make it 120 next quarter? I think that's how you keep incrementally improving. Another important concept which we keep thinking and talking about in Go and See, which is to say, today a lot of people in corporate office, when they are product managers, they have their own idea, aisa hona chahiye. But until unless they go on the ground and go and see what happens, they really can't improve. So this is my learning. One point in time, I had a punishment posting made by my boss. He made me go to the branch and stay there for say around 2 weeks. I thought of it as a punishment posting, but what he was giving me is a real exposure. And that changed my life. I actually knew end to end, whatever within 15 days, what branches were doing, what payment ecosystem was all about, what processes were there. And when I went back, my product improved dramatically because I knew exactly what was happening on the ground. There's also a focus a lot on packaging, advertising, but very conceptually, we need to look at product management before 70s was not linked to tech. And with time, I think tech came around in 1970s. And then there's another concept you will hear from Intuit, which is talks about follow me home. Now they built a finance software, which is more like accounting one, which was follow me home, which means that you can only improve anything by actually going to the customer, meeting the customer, improving from there. And I think this is very similar to what we hear earlier from a Toyota perspective, where they were saying go and see. Same as the concept, follow me home. So track it out, only then you can improve. Otherwise, corporate offices, I've never given any great product managers ever. I've never met anybody who could do a great job sitting in corporate office and only that. And of course, in 90s, the real world which started, where product managers really came in. I'll be honest that I'm a 90s product, and we had no concept that there was something called product managers. Our job was actually somewhere between a technology, operations, product. I always had three reportings: ops, tech, and business. And somehow I was actually able to sort of I don't think it was multiple reporting, but at least dual reporting all through, either ops and tech or ops and tech and product. And that's where these roles have now become a product manager role or a digital product manager role. I think let's come to product now. In the BFSI domain, product can be anything. It can be things like one card. One card is basically a credit card, which can be one way. You can have Jupiter kind of concept where they are actually rebaselining the way current account, savings account and neo banking happens, or maybe even a Coke or a Slack, a communication platform, or an Instagram. So I think from a product and service perspective, the way you package and the way you sell, finally it becomes a product, right? So that's how you can conceptualize even in BFSI domain. Now, for any product to exist, we need to think from a long-term vision and mission of the product. So what is it going to solve for? Let's say accounting system is going to solve on a long-term basis the customer needs for accounting. And with time, you also have to conceptualize what more can we do on that. So maybe your vision and mission can change. You actually, accounting system can also be visualized as a single platform on which any MSME can actually build entire requirements on financial services, non-financial services, investment perspective, treasury management, payments, collections, all of that. So you can have your own vision, and then of course to meet those vision, you will have a high level goals, and those goals will be converted into epics features. So at this point of time, when you typically see, you will see a small releases going with some specific features, some specific ideas, but you need to roll up saying under what vision are we working and under what vision we are scaling. I know that there are questions coming up. Give me a few minutes and I'll take them in a short while. Now, whenever you build a product, you need to have a thesis behind it, right? And of course, I'll come to what kind of research you need to do, but you need to have a thesis. Who are going to be my customer? So I met a very senior guy from the ecosystem, very senior guy from the ecosystem. And I asked him what he wants to build a startup. In the morning, he's been a very big guy in the ecosystem, CEO of a bank, CEO of many other companies. And he said, I want to build this. And he was very generic by nature. I was asking, who is your actual customer? Kiske liye banana chahte ho? If they are going to work with them, will they pay for the service, right? What is the real problem you are solving for? What is solution you are going to build for it? From a security and compliance perspective, we are in regulatory world, right? Is it going to be clear and sort of regulatory compliant? When the customer is we are trying to sell to, will he have knowledge enough to buy it, right? So for example, a lot of times we say, मैं गांव में जाके solve करूंगा, मैं inclusion पे काम करूंगा, but the customer doesn't know. First, he needs to have a financial literacy you can do before you can do it. So a lot of discussions or questions you need to ask yourself before you go. And for example, for us, we believe that that's how we started, right? I believe that there's a need for a dedicated fintech consulting firm, which will accelerate the digital business of banks and NBFCs and fintechs. And because this is the market in which there's a very limited knowledge available as of now, and we can actually expedite and simplify it. So that's the hypothesis we had taken. Some other day I'll take a session on why I went wrong in which are areas where I went wrong, but not today. But you need to have a hypothesis of your product or a service, and then go to the market with that idea. And again, in a current environment, a lot of things are different, right? I think the Darwin's law has to be envisioned, right? Innovation moves at a very rapid pace, right? So you need to be, if you have to survive, you need to be innovative all the time. For example, whatever trainings we were doing earlier, maybe 5, 6 years back, all our trainings have been completely revamped because the market is changing continuously. From a younger generation perspective, there are customers, and both from a entrepreneurship side as well as customer side. These guys are fearless. They will try to do something new. They will try to understand something new. They will want to experiment something new. So you need to be changing for that segment as well as much as you can. Customer expectations are improving or increasing every time. They need actual and real results all the time. Of course, regular, because we are in BFSI domain, you need to be able to be ready for a regulatory support or de-support. Now, for example, prepaid credit was de-support and suddenly everything changed. And also, you need to be confident that what funding ideas are getting supported, right? For example, you come back and say, I will do neobank, and suddenly 5 neobanks got funded massively. The market changed for everyone, right? So others have to actually adjust to that product, and they have to figure out how do they can now create niche to service their customer set. But with this, just a thought process. I know I've spoken about a fair bit, but let's look at how digital changed everything, right? If you look at it from a pure digital perspective, earlier we were talking about physical cards, we were talking about mutual funds or loans and bank accounts. So what we had a situation was product was all physical, as well as distribution was all physical. Everything was physical. You had need a form, you had people, you had process, everything was tuned to human beings. And then in the digital world, for example, Grow or a Jupiter or a One Card, they are sold digitally, distributed digitally, and the products themselves are digital. Now that is a transition you and me have to go through. Which is ICICI Bank is connected banking. It's not physical. It's all digital, right? It's all API based or a YAP or a Perfios. They are not built for physical touch. They are actually built for a digital world. So how do you ensure that? So all the product managers who work in this segment right now in the physical world, when they transition this side, they actually find it very difficult to transition because it changes a lot of their thought process, both in terms of how the product looks and feels like. For example, a debit card versus UPI, right? Debit card was built for physical adoption, and therefore it had its own DNA. But when you took it to digital UPI, it had to be conceptualized afresh. The journeys and the plans and the scale, right? Look at the scale which UPI has got. Debit card would never be able to reach that kind of scale, despite being such an old product, because the digital interface actually changes a lot of things from an interface perspective. Now, whenever you think of a product and product rollouts, you obviously have to start with the context in which you are there. For example, what is the political scenario? What is the environment? What is the funding environment? What is the economic environment? What is the technology new interface or new activities which are happening in your countries? For example, availability of Jandan can change everything, right? Jandan changed everything because environment was pro inclusion. A lot of people have had current account or savings account. Things change. You also have to look at from a customer perspective, right? Who's the customer? What value are they looking? What can I do for him? And stuff like that. So there's a lot of interface thought process have to be conceptualized from a pure customer perspective. Also, you may have a lot of opportunities in the market, and I keep meeting people who are so good in themselves. But when they think of themselves, they don't realize that they have their own vision. When they want to launch a new product, they want to copy paste from somebody else's model. Let's say, for example, somebody else has launched neobanks. I will also launch neobanks, right? That's not how you work. It works. You need to look at what is your current vision and mission, right? You are in a particular journey. You are already, for example, you are building something for MSMEs, and suddenly you take a turn to launch something for neobank for retail. It doesn't work like that. So how do you ensure that your vision, mission, and strategies and strengths and weaknesses are aligned to launch a new product? For example, for us, we are B2B guys, right? We know how to run a B2B business well. But if somebody comes back and saying, can you launch a B2C business? I can do for somebody else, but can I be the best guy to distribute the product on my own? Not really. We really are not there. We are B2B guys, but we can help somebody in doing it. So we need to know our DNA, your DNA, company's DNA before we pick up any product as well. We need to also look at who are the various competitors in the market, what is the opportunity threats in the markets, all of that. So what market share can we take in this market? What is the common interest? For example, you would want to collaborate with people. I had a call with a client of mine or potential client of mine where we realized that what they bring to table and we bring to table are actually very similar by nature in terms of There are no overlap, but we can be very symbiotic by nature. So you need to ensure that you work with those collaborators to scale up along, rather than going in the market with your own idea saying, "Mujhe khud hi karna hai." You need to ensure that you have partners with whom you can actually roll out. If I were to enter, or our company was to enter, let's say Middle East, I need to have somebody with common interests so that they are looking at transformation in their country, and they would want us to work with them around that, right? So I think this is just a basic framework, 5C framework for analyzing the market in terms of the political market, the pestle framework, as you call, context. We need to talk about competitors, collaborators, companies, and of course, customer whom you are trying to serve. Sometimes people make cardinal mistake that they have done on analysis, but not realizing how powerful the competitor is. And I can tell you there are some segments in India, in BFSI, in B2B, you have such strong competitors you really can't enter. So you need to find either an alternative to it or a niche to it so that you can enter. By replicating and creating a Me Too product, you really can't win the battle. And I've seen enough of those guys losing around in the journey. Now, for any kind of maybe I'll take a few questions. I'm just looking at that. My audio, Shashank, is okay?
Yes, Amir, it's pretty well. It's pretty good.
Because I think I saw some of you saying that my audio was not very high.
No, it's pretty good.
I think it was okay. Yeah, let me see. The question from Simran Trivedi is, could you shed some light on how do we define the uniqueness of product as it is in competitive world, and we can come across similar products every day? I think my response is very simple. I think we always have to define the product from a customer side first. It will be always useful to start maybe comparing the product by going and meeting the customer, their experience, and the gaps they are right now feeling. For example, every great product may have some gaps which you can understand on the ground. And of course, you can do surveys and all, but physically meeting the customer is always the most beneficial activity. And of course, you will find nudges where you can actually find some changes which you can tweak to the market as well. You can also ensure that instead of hitting the customer or the competitor with the product which goes to hits every customer out there, you can find a niche which is not served as well by the product or competitor and go after that, rather than saying that I will actually handle the entire market. Nobody can actually go back and saying I will compete head on with Paytm in maybe Bolt market, but you can solve for a niche market. For example, many of these neobanks for youngsters focused on a crowd which is below 20 or below 18 and build a better product, right? So I think you need to figure out what niche is right for you. Now, for any product to be successful, I think where do you need to be? You need to be able to address the customer needs very well. You need to be ready for iterative development, right? For example, what I mean by iterative development is that you really can't do one-shot development. This is a fight which I always have with business heads and product heads. They want to roll out entire product in one shot, saying that I'm competing with XYZ and I should have all of it in one shot. It doesn't take you anywhere. You will be off by 2 years and the product will also be inefficient. So you need to be ready for iterative product development. You need to be ready for positioning it well in a particular slot, which works well. You need to create differentiation. For example, we focus primarily on the training side, which is we compete head on with all IAMs on fintech training. Our basic thought process is we want to make it practical and usable, right? We are not in theory. It is all which we practice for. We again need to look at when we do a product rollout. A lot of times the CRs happen all the time, right? You need to ensure that the scope change is limited. You don't go for infinite movement all the time. Somebody comes back and change the entire direction all the time. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. Also on the success metrics, you need to have an idea about what will the value, what is the benefit you will get out of the product, how quickly can you roll out. Typically, whenever we work with someone, we tend to roll out something in 3 to 6 months. I think 3 months is ideal. 6 is the worst, right? Because if you don't get a rollout in the next 3 months, it's not good. And it may be weak. It may be going to only few hundred customers, but it's always good to have that. And of course, you need to keep engaging with customer. You need to ensure the customer engagement layer is good, and you also meet the customer well to ensure that you get feedback. Now, another concept which we keep looking at is that a lot of products are feasible and viable. I think it's important that you look at desirability of the product as well, right? What happens is a lot of times the products are built which are not desirable and nobody buys them products. So, for example, the way Neo or Jupiter or Phi have been able to create a different experience, they have become a desirable product to work with. Slice become a desirable product, or a Zest became a desirable product because they gave a different experience. They actually reached out to the customer and gave him something better than what was available. So I think critical that you build something which is desirable, not just feasible and viable. And that's a generation shift, right? I mean, I come from a background where feasible and viable was okay, but in the current world, it's not so. I think you need to also be aware of some challenges when you go for it. I think this is a slide which we picked up from product code. I really liked it. And there are a lot of challenges. For example, when you build a product, you're not able to convince the CEO, right? Or you are not able to convince the CXO. And therefore, the guy, he says, "Ye mujhe chahiye," and you're not able to get through and make him understand. So you need to be able to handle these guys as well as a product manager. There are also some guys who just come out as arrogant, "Ye chahiye, nahi to chalega, chhod ke chalega meeting," right? So ensure that you meet them, understand them, and get them onboarded, or maybe work with a sponsor of the event, the program, and get his support. There are a lot of other guys, right? For example, there are guys who are working on latest fire market mein naya aaya, yahi chahiye, not figuring out what is the original objective. And then of course, somebody is actually focusing only on a future version of it, right? So that's how people think. In a normal product manager, you think of your job is to create better experience on tech and business, but in real, you are actually finding it very difficult. This is a simple reality. Growth कैसे करें, retention कैसे करें, roadmap कैसे करें, hire कैसे करें, how do you build MVPs? You have to build MVPs after MVP. You launch something on retail side, and then there's a need to launch something on a corporate side as well. So you need to keep balancing the fact that as we scale up and grow. I think with this, I pause for a moment and let Shashank take it from there. Any questions I can see here? Let me see if I can find some questions I can respond back to. I don't see any more questions. So, Shashank, would you want to take it forward, please?
Yeah, and maybe before
Shashank,
something.
you are on mute.
No, am I audible?
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. I'll jump.
Okay, so maybe I request, so my team is putting a feedback form and I request everybody to please fill up the feedback form. So that's feedback is always very helpful for us to keep on improving ourselves. So may I request my team to just put it in the feedback form in the chat box, and then meanwhile, I just pull up my screen. Yeah. So Vikrant or Maitri, I assume my screen is visible.
Yeah, visible.
Yes, so just hold on. So guys, I think we got a pretty fair view of the product management, and understand that in the short session, we can just only go on the basic, right? And in subsequent sessions already, somebody talked about that we'll try to go some of the specific areas of the product management also. So this initial first session is primarily to give you insight on the product management, and as well as now the product manager, right? Because that's where that entire the job market also and everything is looking, that everybody is trying to be looking at the right product manager to build on a kind of a world-class product, and especially in the BFSI segment. So let's try to look that little more deeper. So in the previous slide, you would have noticed that primarily the product management job is to build a product which has a technologies a component. It's completely taking care of the business requirement, which is primarily from the customer perspective, and also taking care of the compliance, right? But since we are talking about that digital product management in the financial segment, the regulatory compliance becomes one of the centric component to all the things. As a product manager, you are expected to understand the product requirements, right? Be it on the lending, deposits, or cards, or any other component is there. Regulatory understanding is very critical. So you need to make a balance of the business requirement, tech understanding, as well as the UX requirement. So as a digital product manager, you may have the three variants kind of things. One is that definitely is a B2B, which is primarily the product which has been built for the business consumptions, which could be any software product that you're talking about, be it on the core banking, which is a mammoth product in itself. And there could be a subcomponent of the product also is a core banking, or it could be anything. It could be card management system, it could be loan management system is the bureau product. So anything which has been primarily targeted towards the business, right? Well, lots more products will be a pure targeting towards the retail customers, right? And those are like me and you kind of things, right? So all your mobile banking platforms, you talk about it, or say, for example, examples that Samir was talking about, the Neo or the One Card and all these things. These are like purely talking about that individuals, right? And there will be some segments, partner product, which is again a subset of the B2B, where that you are building a product jointly as in a kind of the middle layer, where that providing that product to the third party to consume, and which could be used to cater to the retail customer or the business customers. So where that, how does it work? So how do you play the role of the digital product manager? Like, right, most of you guys are here playing in some way or other, or the full-fledged product manager role. Look at the dynamics, right? He is like everything, right? You need to have a first very clear understanding of the customer perspective. You should be able to understand that what is the pain statement for the customers. What are the things that he is looking, which can make his life better, which is like that he will consume the product, right? So customer. But since we are talking about the digital product management and the products evolution is moving toward the digital, right? The building that completely the digital products delivered through digital channels and all these things, the technology becomes a very critical component. So understanding of the APIs, understanding of the analytics, understanding of the journeys, those are again becomes very critical, that how digitally or the technologies that you are going to deliver those services to customers. So you may not be expert, you may not be expected to do the coding, you may not be expected to write the APIs, but definitely you would expected to understand the technology better, like how the APIs will work, what kind of the API can be used, how the entire the design thinking approach can be applied to the whole of the process, right? Then research is again very critical, be it on the primary research, that we go and speak to the customer on the ground, try to understand the customer challenges or upfront, right? Or maybe the secondary research, where you start looking in the competition, what competitors are doing, what kind of the features that everybody is talking about in the market, how these individuals are solving the problems of the customer that you are talking about. Playing the role of the leadership, right? Because that's where you take the things and the control. You are driving that in charge of the product. You need to make sure that it hits on the time, right? Then, as already spoken about, that compliance, understanding the legality part of that any product that you take into the market has to be very clear. Now, there may be a teams for drive that product to take it market, but you need to understanding of the marketing or the sales becomes again the critical requirement for the digital product manager, right? How your product gonna be sell in the market? So you need to start looking from the perspective of the product marketing and sales and operations. That's again, product is primarily the front-end consumption for the customers, right? But the backend also has to be handled, and backend is all about the operations handling. So your understanding of the backends is very critical. Like, for example, in the case of the product like Jupyter, which is a neobank product, right? Now you build an interface where the customer comes and applies, and then he is engaging on the platforms to consume the financial services on the Jupyter platforms, right? But how does you are going to handle in the backend? Like, say, customer request comes from the address change, customer communication requirements come from some transaction failures and all these things. Now you'll try to handle it technically as much as possible, but you need to also have an understanding that if it doesn't happen, then how you're going to handle it operationally, right? And the last, not the least, but also it's important that the finance, you are responsible for the P&L of your product, right? So what kind of the cost structure going to be there? What kind of the revenue opportunities is going to be there? Everything has to be very clearly defined, and the long-term visibility of the product, because you are in the business of profitability. So you need to have the kind of the long-term roadmap that whether this product will be a viable business opportunities, which will generate a kind of the revenue or the profitability for the organization, or is it just going to solve it some excitement in the market, but may not be a business viable kind of things, right? So that's where that all the aspects that you need to look into that. And look at that. These are like priority diagram. It shows that each one of these keep contributing to each of the different factors. Like some of the finance inputs may go into which may influence the technology aspect, which may influence the customer's requirements, right? May influence your research capabilities, right? So that's why it keeps on looking. So every component will keep on driving on some of the changes that you may looking for. Let us try to look at them more from the BFSI perspective more, right? So we already spoken about the project managers, which is the intersection of the UI, UX, the business requirement, the technology component, as well as the regulatory, right? And focus is building that product for the particular customer. But at the same time, you also need to look at that how your digital maturity of the organization is there, what kind of the digital skills that organization may have having. And not only from the internal perspective, but the market, that how the market is evolving in terms of the digital maturity, in terms of the adoptions of the technologies by the customers. So digital maturity is again very critical. You need to look at the cost of transformation, the kind of the digital product that you are building upon, and like trying to be in a kind of the market leader into building a kind of transformation product, what are the cost to element to that? So cost of the transformation has to be looked at it. Then regulation already I've spoken about, so regulations definitely has to be lowered, but at the same time, when you're building a product and in the BFSI segments, very important that you protect the interest of the customer, be it on from the data security perspective, be it on the fraudulent transaction perspective. You need to understand when you are building the products, these are the components has to be built into the whole journeys, right? So at the journey itself, you have to look into that, how you take care of the fraud and the cyber security and the data privacy. So I already spoken about most of the component of the product manager, the skills from the perspective, the sales, the legal, finance, research, marketing, support, and customers, right? So that's where the role. So you are playing in a wearing a multi hat within the organization, within the teams, right? So you may not be expert on the each of the area, but you need to have the understanding of each of the components, which will make you a better product manager, right? Now, like what are the prerequisites is regard? So that's more from the business skills that require, but as well as the soft skills, right? Because where that makes you the great product manager, right? These are the things that start helping you to transform as a product manager, right? Strategic thinking. Samir was talking about, like, so when you're trying to build about the uniqueness of within the products, right? You need to look at from beyond that traditional solutions, right? You need to look at the out of the box, that what you can bring it to the table that may not be followed by somebody else, but you can introduce that kind of the change in your product, which can create a wow factor as well as the business viability for that. So having a strategic thinking and the long-term vision for the product, need to think from the future perspective that where your product gonna be there, as well as the kind of the market evolutions that you're looking into that. Already spoken about the understanding of technology is very critical from the product manager, may not require to ability to do a coding, may not have the ability to build an analytics model, but definitely need to have the kind of the ability to understand the technologies they use. I'm talking about the more of the use cases, right? Say, for example, many times when you're trying to build a product, which is a digital mobile interface. Now, on what platform, what kind of the interfaces it need to have, what kind of the language that it need to be built, should it be built in a hybrid mode, which is should be then built in the native kind of things. You need to have that kind of a flavor understanding that improves that experience part of it. The APIs, when you're building the journeys, you need to have understanding that what are the APIs and what are the interfaces that you can incorporate. So that's where the understanding of technologies. Having the skills around the design and development is again very critical, right? So whole approach of the design thinking is very inherent to the product management, right? So design thinking, understanding, and that's why when we talk about the product management course within our executive programs, we put a lot of emphasis on the design thinking, where that we try to create a workshop kind of environment where that lots of the deep dive happens on the design thinking as a part of the product management. And the entire the development process, because once you're building the product requirement document and taking to the engineering team, they may take care of the code development, but you need to be involved into the whole of end-to-end cycles from the requirement gatherings, building the PRD, product requirement document, and then during the development testing, taking it to market and all these things. So product development process. Very important, the business acumen, right? Whether this features addition, this product will able to generate a business revenue, right? It has to be looked at. So either it's impacting the customer experience, which will lead to the customer to do more transactions on that particular product, or maybe it's just kind of a fancy kind of the features which may not have any kind of the business value, or may not have the adding to the customer experience, which may help you to do any kind of the cross-sell upsells, right? So business acumen again becomes very critical, completely, and it all will depend on the products that you are targeting into the B2B space or the B2C space. Communication skill, I think that's again, it's a very important soft skill that product manager need to have, and which will require lots of the kind of the what is a firefighting skills, ability to explain the things to much better, ability to convince, right? Because if you are convinced about any particular features, then you need to have the kind of understanding communication skills that you're able to bring that entire the team also in the same place, right? And especially it becomes more critical when you start interacting with your engineering team, right? Because they will come from the completely technical background. You may be coming from the business customer perspective. You may need to be able to bridge the gap of the communication between these two, right? The leadership Because as I already spoken, you need to take that things in your charge. You are responsible for that product. You are responsible for the success failure of the product. You need to take the charge of the product, and that can come only when you have that leadership, where that you can take that multiple people as a part of the entire product development cycles, right? So when you are a product manager, you are working with all the different teams, right? You are also now you may be working as a previous slides, right? You may be working very closely, having the experience of all these components, but these components are being driven by somebody individuals within the organization, right? Somebody else is taking care of the sales, somebody is managing the legal, somebody is driving the finance, research, marketing, so support, customer experience, customer engagement, right? Front end kind of thing, and the development. But you need to work very closely with all these guys, right? And so that's where the entire team building skills comes into the play. So this is very critical, very important. The user empathy, and it comes, user empathy is very important from both the perspective, from the customer, because unless until you appreciate the customer problem, you're able to understand the customer problems, right? And old saying goes, right? You need to put yourself in the customer foot to understand. That's where the empathy comes into. But also it will come from the internal, right? You need to understand that what challenges the internal team may have, what capabilities that internal team may have. And that's where the working entirely with the whole team structure, so that empathy can be there as a product manager, as a leader to drive that. While all these things are more like a soft skill and the desirable skills to build as a product manager, most of the frameworks are evolving, especially in the recent times. When you look at it, the entire different frameworks, methodology are changing, which is influencing the entire product management process, right? Whether Agile, Scrum, or all these things, right? So it's influence. So you need to have that kind of understanding of these frameworks like Kanban and all these things. So this session is not about that, going deeper into that, but subsequent sessions will try to touch upon a few of the frameworks, which as a product management, it's required you to have an understanding, right? So that's where we'll look into that. Now, before we go, so again, a sincere request, the team has put in the feedback forms, and I'll request that everybody to fill in their requests. So that will help, right? Now, who can become a digital PM product manager today, right? As I said, that the market is completely getting evolved, right? And many other guys are looking into have the right skill sets of the product manager within their teams, right? So it's creating lots of opportunities for many of the different guys who are sitting on the different teams or sitting on the fence. They can play the role of the digital product manager, like user experience architects, who are primarily more skills into the understanding the user experience, building the user experience. So they know that how the journey to be created. They know that how the customer need to be engaged. So these guys could be there. Information architect, business analyst, again, very critical that this role may be very closely linked to the product manager, right? Because they understand the customer requirement and they try to translate into the team who can do the development, right? They're kind of bridge between these two. So business analysts are like very closely to the who can become a product managers. The developer, because they're doing the development, they interact with the business analyst, they interact with the product manager. So today's the developers or the engineering teams also having a good understanding of the product management flavor, so they can. And these skills guys come when they start playing out the product manager, it may definitely adds more power to them, right? There are other like marketing, operational, compliance, sales professionals, definitely it helps, right? Now look at the job opportunities. I think this is based on that our Monster India study that we did, and we try to look into that, and that looking into that market understanding, and also with interaction with the various BFSI companies as well as the fintechs and startups. I think the entire hierarchy, the requirement is there. Like everybody is looking at the different level of the product management, including to the chief product officer or the product head across the different products, BP director. And it may not be only the single product, but it could be the multiple products individually being taken care of. So approximately like 30,000 kind of the product manager role that we anticipate, and almost like in a digital PM role of the 73K. So it's a massive market where that people are looking in the product managers, right? And that's why one of the reasons that we picked up this sessions to conduct in public, right? Now, one of the things is also very important to understand that product manager and the project manager, right? Always there is this confusion keeps on coming that, okay, is the product manager or the project manager is same? Is the product management or the project management is the same, right? May not be, right? Definitely not. Product management is very focused about that doing the complete end-to-end development of the products, right? from the design to the building that building the product visions, getting through the development, adding the data analytics component into that, and taking the product to the market, right? So that's where the entire the product manager focus is there. While project managers is all about the different any project development which is there, right? Any implementation, any product development also. So entire the product development cycle can be managed as a project, right? Where that you define a clear milestones of that product development, and then you can run it as a project manager, right? So it becomes very important that any product manager also carry the skills of the project manager, right? Where that you require to put out a proper project plannings, build a different tasks, break it down into the different activities, and start mapping the progress vis-a-vis the timelines, vis-a-vis this cost, vis-a-vis the schedules, right? Everything you try to monitor. And then launch, so go live about, like, say, for example, product milestone, you have put it up, say, for example, a release of MVP. Now, release of MVP can be taken as an end-to-end project, right? Release one again can be taken as a project. So these are like different components of the product itself can be considered as an individual project. So project manager are primarily the skills who is trying to manage that end-to-end as a projects while working very closely on the project plan. While product manager is more focused on the end-to-end of the product development as well as maintenance. Yes, I think about the product manager management can have the project manager skills. It's always better to have that project management skills. So I'll take a pause and we'll see if any questions are there. Okay, so I don't have the name. It comes with Oppo F9 Pro, but how do you decide what is the right mix, what tech, right? It's definitely is a pretty not an easy things to decide, right? It all depends upon the what kind of the product that you are building. Are you building as a completely mobile interface, or building it for from the retail customer, or is it for the, say, for example, B2B product that you are building? It's all depends on that, right? If it's a primarily, if you're talking about the B2C kind of the product, targeting towards the millenniums, may have the different kind of the tech requirement, high volume kind of the product that you are building, where the lots of the transactions will come. So there that you will have that again different technical requirement. Now you may not need to decide upon the backend, like, okay, what kind of the server structure that it need to be there, what kind of the caching mechanism, or what kind of the database structure and all these things will be that the engineering team will be able to pretty well define that. You may need to be able to communicate that, okay, this is expected to be the high volume ticket items. There are lots of the frictions that you're trying to remove into that product. So these are the typical on the backend side. Front end side, yes, definitely you need to have some level of understanding in terms of the front end, right? What kind of the front end will look better, easy to use for the customer. So primarily you may need to work very closely with the engineering teams, explain it. APIs, I think APIs is relatively having a good understanding there that you may be able to decide that, okay, building the entire automations part of the service delivery for or the feature delivery. So it's not an easy answer when you're talking about B2B kind of product, and there that definitely you need to have a much deeper understanding of technologies, right? Let's say, for example, you are building banking as a service product, right? Like, say, for example, Yap or Decentro, that kind of the product when you're building, definitely you need to have a much deeper understanding of the technology, and where that you'll be able to define about, you should be able to guide that what kind of tech mix need to be there. So it's all vary from the B2C to B2B perspective. Okay, again, a sincere request to all our participants. Please request you to share that feedback form. It's always help us to keep on improving. And as we are coming to the subsequent sessions on the same, and we are planning to do lots more different series of the sessions on the different topics. As Samir would already communicated that after the product management, we'll be coming on that series of sessions on the digital transformation. So it's always feedback will help. Request you again to share your feedback. So last few bites. Where the product management, as we talking about this exercise, we carried out under the umbrella of our hiring services, where we interact with the team. So we have so far been handling the various mandates from the different of the entities across the banks to the fintechs to the technology companies. And we have been hiring across the hierarchy from the leadership, the senior CXO levels to the directors, head position, as well as that mid-tier kind of the product managers, solution architect. And the feedback forms, anybody interested, please put up your remarks on the feedback forms. So my team will get in touch with you in case if you are looking for any role. Just last bit is why the analytics also becomes very critical to the digital product manager. Again, so there are multiple technology interfaces. We just picked up the data analytics. So when you're trying to build on a product, various important matrices that you need to define as a part of the product design, right? How you're going to measure the performance of the product, right? And for that, you need to important to come out with the matrices like customer engagement, churn, cost of customers, right? Acquisition of the cost, what kind of the customer lifetime value that you're going to create. And it's just in a symbolic some list, right? But we will have a lot more. How are you going to do the data assessment, understanding of how you're going to analyze that thing? What kind of the visualization that you're looking for? What kind of the result that you're looking for? You need to have that kind of understanding. The entire analytics model may be created by the team, but you will need to guide them on the entire analytical aspects. So it's very important to you to have an understanding of the use of AI/ML, where that you can use, you start guiding with the teams like, okay, you may start using the Kafka. I'm just for the sake of introducing some of the terms and you may not have understanding, but you need to start looking at that. Okay, how do you create the data? How do you get it analyzed? What model will work on this kind of thing? You need to have that kind of understanding, right? In the terms of the decision making, right? You need to start managing the product sales and performance. Look at the trends in the customer purchase behavior, right? Let's say I was talking about one of the examples earlier in previous sessions, like say credit card. I used one of the credit card as a product. Now credit cards has a certain limit size defined already for me, and I keep on getting a message that okay, your credit limit has been almost tripled. But nobody has tried to analyze that whether I'm using that limit which has already been assigned to. I'm using only the 30% of the credit limit. So why you're extending it to the 3 times, right? Instead of that, the product manager should look at that, how to influence me or engage me better to increase my usage on that limit that is there. No? So that's where you start having an understanding of the customer purchase behavior. Look at the customer satisfaction. Is the customer is getting the benefits? He's really engaged. He's really satisfied. And today's in the market, many of the guys may switch over to the different products because the market is filled with a similar kind of the products. It becomes very critical that you completely engage. And that can come from the data interactions, data interfaces, right? And also look at that what kind of the competitive landscapes that you are talking about. So again, some of the data points coming from the competitive. So this is a snapshot of the things. Primarily, we have created our next programs, which is coming on the AI/ML as well as the blockchain. We're primarily focusing on that dimensions, right? Looking from the business understanding, looking from the product understandings, right? It's not designed to help you to build that entire model on the analytics. That's not the objective of this program, but more objective is to create a business value, the product value through this program. So AI/ML module is coming and is starting from the 16th of April. Again, the links is there. Please share your feedback. Anybody who is want to interest to know more about it, definitely you can just put your details into that feedback form and the team will get in touch with you. So I hope we would have got some good feedback from the teams. Okay, so this is fine. So I think Samir has already. So with this, we come to the closer. Any more questions? Is there? Please put up the questions and I'll try to answer if possible. So keep looking for, so Vikrant, have you announced for the next day? I think we have announced 6th April, we are coming for the session 2 of this webinar programs, the product management, the knowledge series of the product management. We continue to look at our LinkedIn handle and we'll continue to look at the emailers. You can go to our website, you can register where that we can continue to keep informed about that, what are the new programs or the sessions that we are coming for. And already in the feedback form also matter is communicated. Please share the feedback. Those who share the feedback may definitely go back and share the summarized version of the deck also. I think we have somebody raised, Rohit, or someone raised a hand. I'm not sure. Yeah, Rakesh, you had a question. I'm not sure if he has a question or. So with this, if no questions, so with this, we come to an end of the sessions. And looking forward, guys, again to see you on next. Is it Friday or Saturday? Thursday, the 6th of April. Guys, Thursday, I think, assume. So thank you, guys. Thank you for taking out time and attending. Thank you very much.